So Hillary Clinton had an interview with Joy Reid about foreign policy and about the leaders of the world. I caught something in this interview that Hillary Clinton said. I watched this video twice because I was like, did she just say that? But I want to get your opinion about it as well. Check out this interview here. And I think it's actually a longer interview, but this was the one that I wanted to talk about. Now, this is a discussion about Ukraine, but they also go on to talk about Netanyahu. For those who are not aware, Netanyahu is trying to be prime minister of Israel again. Let's get into it.
Political polarization is not a purely American phenomenon. Many democracies across the globe are struggling with the very same issues. On Sunday, the citizens of the fourth largest democracy, Brazil, elected former leftist President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who successfully beat back far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Tonight, Bolsonaro finally broke his silence, telling reporters that he would follow the Constitution while never actually conceding his defeat. At the same time, in Israel, yet another politician seems to have made an astonishing comeback. Exit polls in Israeli elections predict that former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will once again lead the country. He will marshal a far-right coalition of outspoken religious supremacists, including a follower of the late explicitly racist ultra-nationalist Meir Kahane, whose organization was once classified as a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department.
What is going to be the U.S. government's response to Netanyahu becoming prime minister again in Israel and the racist policies? We'll see.
Netanyahu and Bolsonaro are close allies to Vladimir Putin. Netanyahu's reemergence on the scene is particularly troubling for Ukraine. Netanyahu recently wrote that Putin is smart, sophisticated, and focused on one goal, returning Russia to its historical greatness. Since launching its invasion of Ukraine, Russia has waged targeted attacks against civilians, including torture, rape, and indiscriminate attacks in densely populated areas, all in the name of making Russia great again. Back with me is former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. We're going to take advantage of your foreign policy chops, Madam Secretary. And I do want to start by asking you about.
Notice how Joy Reid there leaves out the history between Russia and Ukraine. Notice how she doesn't mention anything about NATO. She doesn't mention anything about this has been a struggle for the past 8 years. You see the mainstream media talking points? Because if she were to point those things out, Hillary Clinton wouldn't be on this show.
Brazil. What do you make of the fact that Bolsonaro, in the end, was defeated and his reticence about conceding that defeat?
Well, I think what he did today sends a quite positive message, Joy. I think that he basically couldn't bring himself to say that he lost, and so it wasn't a formal concession, but he said he would follow the Constitution, and he apparently gave the okay to his team to say they would start the transition.
Hasn't Hillary Clinton been doing the same thing? Isn't Hillary Clinton isn't she still trying to blame other people? Recently, she tried to say that she didn't really lose per se. Hasn't she tried? Okay. Alrighty.
So we didn't hear big steal. We didn't hear, it was rigged. I didn't really lose. We didn't hear any of that from him like we heard from and still hear today from Trump. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Brazil will make this transition. I think it's going to be quite difficult for Lula because the election was so close. I mean, it was about as close to a 50-50 election as you could get. But he has made it clear, again, something we didn't hear from Trump at his inauguration, but he has made it clear he wants to be the president for all Brazilians, those who voted for him, those who did not vote for him. So, as I say, I'm cautiously optimistic that he...
I just don't understand what this really has to do with Trump, though. I think they try to find an excuse. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of criticisms of Donald Trump, but I feel like they try to throw Trump's name in just because, I really feel like some people would forget about Donald Trump, but they can't because people like Hillary Clinton keep bringing him up. You know, I don't know. They should just stop bringing him up and let Trump fade away.
Will be able to govern the country effectively and begin to deal with some of the, very big problems that face Brazil.
Isn't it wild when normal politics is like surprising news? When people just do the normal thing like concede an election. I want to move on. To Vladimir Putin. Among the many troubling things that are going on inside the Kremlin is this new seeming partnership with Iran, which apparently is going to be sending drones to help them continue to commit war crimes in Ukraine. Putin seems to be completely off his skis in terms of what he's trying to do, saying last week Taiwan is part of China, sort of trying to stoke maybe China to do.
Okay, I'm sorry. Saying Taiwan is part of China, it is part of China. I can't make this up. So she's talking about the fact of Putin signaling to Iran to send drones. And this is exactly why we need to be calling for peace. Do you see how this is? This should have not even escalated to this point. The United States government and those dummies in Congress for pulling back, excuse my language, but that's what they are right now, pulling back that letter, calling for peace and diplomacy. It should have never gotten to this point. It should have never escalated to this point. Like, how long is this supposed to go on? Seriously.
The same thing he's doing in Ukraine. What do you think? How do you think this ultimately ends? What Putin is doing in Ukraine? Do you think his government can survive this incredible mistake he's made and his just seeming losing his hinges?
Well, we don't know yet, but I think three things are really important. Number one, the courage, the resilience of the Ukrainian people, led by a very impressive government operating under the most exceptionally difficult circumstances. I give the government and the people of Ukraine just enormous, positives because of what they've been able to do in the face of this barbaric onslaught coming from Putin. They could not have done it without the very strong support of the United States, NATO, our allies in two ways. One, continuing to provide the kind of military equipment they need to defend themselves.
But they haven't just been providing them with military equipment. And we went over this because Glenn Greenwald wrote an article about this where he laid out all the numbers. I got to go back and find that article again. He laid out all the numbers. We went over this on this show. They weren't just giving them military weapons. They were also giving them health care. They were also giving them money for clean water. When we have people in this country that don't have health care, we have people in this country that don't have clean water. So they could help them have clean drinking water, but they can't help the people in Jackson, Mississippi have clean drinking water. They can't give people in Flint clean drinking water, and it's been all these years. So I don't like the way that she's discussing this. And I've seen this talking point multiple times, but the data doesn't lie. A lot of people, they're making this talking point on mainstream media. The U.S. has helped them with the weapons that they need to fight. And they totally leave out everything else that was in those packages, all the other things that they're doing for them that they won't even do for our own damn people. That's a problem. Quickly and swiftly, they move to give them that aid. But we can't even get paid sick leave. We can't even give everybody health care. And we've been fighting for that for years. But look how quickly they can move to give the money to them. Matter of fact, next protester, Jose or whoever you guys are, if you're out there listening, I know Jose and his people go. The next time you go to one of these events as a protester, mention that. Mention that.
Against Russia and imposing sanctions that at least we seem to believe are beginning to really bite and will continue to deepen the economic pain of Russia. So I think if we stay with the Ukrainians, because I personally view their fight as our fight, they're fighting for democracy, they're fighting for freedom, they're fighting for their rights to make their own futures and not be subjected to Putin's whims and his imaginary history that they've never existed.
We're going to go back here just a little bit here because there's something she said that is not okay with me.
Themselves against Russia and imposing sanctions that at least we seem to believe are beginning to really bite and will continue to deepen the economic pain of Russia.
Economic sanctions are also warfare. I don't think it's okay for people to starve because of these sanctions. I don't think that's okay. Never agree with that. Not cool. And it's not just like the US just has sanctions on Russia. They put sanctions on Afghanistan. So people are starving there. Yemen, people are starving there. Children, by the way, for the people who want to talk about the women and the children. I don't think that's okay.
So I think if we stay with the Ukrainians, because I personally view their fight as our fight.
She views their fight as our fight? No. Who's our what? Who are you speaking for? Who is she speaking for? What do you mean our fight? How are we in the same position here? How are we in the same boat? We're not in the same boat. What are you talking about? Their fight is our fight. Wow, 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 wow. You see, she will make these statements and people in other countries, people abroad, they'll hear this and they'll believe that this is how all Americans feel because she's speaking for all of us. Wow.
They're fighting for democracy. They're fighting for freedom. They're fighting for their rights to make their own futures and not be subjected to Putin's whims and his imaginary history that they've never existed. I think it's important for us to continue to support them. And you mentioned the partnership.
And of course, look at Joy Reid just nodding her head. Absolutely. Just like a little puppet to continue support them. You don't support us. They won't even support us. But we supposed to support someone else?
Between Russia and Iran, I think that's one that should make everybody nervous. And that's another reason we need to continue to support Ukraine.
The only thing that makes me nervous is people like you and the Biden administration, the people in power in the United States. You guys are the ones that make me nervous because you have not called for any type of peace negotiations or any type of diplomacy. And the one time you tried, they pulled back the letter, they retracted the letter. And then you have the president of the United States saying, we're inching towards, we could be inching towards a nuclear war, Armageddon here. No, the only person making me nervous is you guys.
I literally have to go, but do you have a very quick comment about what's happening in Israel? If Netanyahu becomes prime minister again with a very far right, dare I say, anti-racist coalition, what does that mean? Very quickly, we're out of time.
We don't know. I mean, Netanyahu's a very experienced politician, and he certainly has always paid attention to the threat from Iran. I hope he pays attention to it now because this partnership that Iran has with Russia should be of deep concern to Israel.
Well, I will.
Did you catch that? Let's hear it again. See, I'm going to show you how they give certain people a pass. Listen to what she said.
Fight. They're fighting for democracy. They're fighting for freedom. They're fighting for their rights to make their own futures and not be subjected to Putin's whims and his imaginary history that they've never existed. I think it's important for us to continue to support them. And you mentioned the partnership between Russia and Iran. I think that's one that should make everybody nervous. And that's another reason we need to continue to support Ukraine.
I literally have to go, but do you have a very quick comment about what's happening in Israel? If Netanyahu becomes PM and prime minister again with a very far right, dare I say, anti-racist coalition, what does that mean? Very quickly.
What do you mean, Joy? Very far right, anti-racist coalition. Do you know what Netanyahu has done? Do you know what he has done? I highlighted this. Thank you, Ashura, for pointing that out as well. Far right, anti-racist administration. Netanyahu he was trying to drive Africans out of Israel. Now, everybody knows about the Palestinians, but here's something you may not know. He was trying to push the African people out. And she says, far right, anti-racist administration. No, remove the anti and just say far right racist administration. What is she talking about? You see how they run cover? They run cover for the state. Listen to Hillary's response. Watch how she runs cover when it's Israel that does it. They run cover. Watch.
We're out of time.
We don't know. I mean, Netanyahu's a very experienced politician, and he certainly has always paid attention to the threat from Iran. I hope he pays attention to it now, because this partnership that Iran has with Russia should be of deep concern to Israel.
Well, I will leave it there. I would love to talk to you for another.
She said, we don't know. We do know. All you have to do is look at history. It wasn't that long ago. He was just there. But you can't criticize the state of Israel. You see what I mean? You see the problem? She willing to give, let me get this straight, Hillary Clinton. You're willing to give Netanyahu a pass on whether or not he may or might be racist this time around, when you already have proof that he was. But you're not willing to give nobody else a pass. You see what I'm saying? What? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And Joy Reid, like, how could you even say that? How could she even come up with a script like that? Far right, anti-racist. That didn't make no fucking sense. Either Joy didn't do her research, she didn't do her homework, or Joy did do her research and her homework, and MSNBC told her what she could or could not say. That's what that's about. Aye. Tien says, I think she corrected herself and just called him racist. And if she corrected herself and just called him racist, did you hear Hillary Clinton's response to that? We don't know. I'm gonna go to some of the comments. Wow. They really run cover. They really do. They really do. Stephen, we all got to make an effort to go to local protests. 100%. Thomas, Lula has issues, but he is still better than any current Dem or indie politician in the U.S. The Dems are center right. Pete, Trump's the convenient boogeyman, right? Carrie, is all a joke when you're rich. Deneen, when you have no policies to help people, you have to rule by fear. That's exactly what they're doing. Thank you for the super chat, Marvin. U.S. welcomes BB. AIPAC runs the U.S. government. Ask Cynthia McKinney, U.S. Rep. Georgia, AIPAC pledge. Yeah, Cynthia McKinney's been on a couple of times to talk about that. They so want to pull a regime change on Russia. LOL. They just want to, that's all they do. Just intervene with other countries. JB, my comrade, a amazing government operating under extreme circumstances. Sounds like Cuba. The U.S. is the problem. Thank you for the super chat. Think before you type. Establishment Democrats and Republicans are two cheeks of the same ass. Keep up the great work in exposing these hypocrites. Love from Somalia. Greetings, greetings. And thank you for the super chat as well. Sabby, remember that audio leak in which Hillary said she would have interfered and stopped in Palestine? Oh, yes, a Palestinian election, yet scream about fake Russiagate. That's right. That's right. And thank you for the super chat. Nobi of Death Reviews shit. That's an interesting name. She said, we seem to believe that the economic sanctions are beginning to work. Huh? I know, right? Isn't it cringe? Like when you, okay.